Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, December 16th, 2019, and today I'm pretty much going to be discussing what I expect to see from the Democratic presidential nomination process for going ahead in 2020. Now, taking a look at pretty much what we have seen so far, I think that it should be a pretty interesting primary season. Keep in mind that Iowa is only a couple months away. I think maybe less than 2 months actually. So we're going to start seeing our first ever results. All we've had so far is pure polling data, and that typically does hold out and is typically accurate in terms of the primary process. Hillary Clinton started off leading in 2016 and ended up winning the nomination. And that's not the only thing. Obviously, there are many other examples. But when we're talking about the presidential nomination process, I think 2008, I would say, is a prime example of where polling data was not initially correct. But that was only because President Barack Obama did not have name recognition. All of these candidates have that now. Pretty much every single one of these candidates has some type of base that has held on to them, no matter how small, throughout the entire campaign season. But pretty much, they actually added this in. I just wanted to mention they keep Harris and O'Rourke on the map because they took O'Rourke off recently, about a couple months ago when O'Rourke dropped out, took him off completely off the scale, and you never could really gauge where he was, which candidates he was ahead of, his peak when he was third place nationwide. So I guess since they decided to keep Kamala Harris in and keep her numbers in, they're going to keep Beto O'Rourke in as well. I don't think they're keeping in any other dropped out candidates, but most of them did not have high off numbers nationwide. So pretty much looking at what we're seeing on the screen right now is pretty much who's leading nationwide. Now, Biden has maintained his lead again. We're seeing this really weird thing where he's dropping down, picking back up, dropping back down, picking up, drop down. It's really repetitive what we're seeing happening with Joe Biden here. But pretty much he leads by 8% nationwide. Senator Sanders and Senator Warren are actually back up from where they were before. They were pretty much going down, with Buttigieg getting a little bit more of a bump. Seems like the Buttigieg bump might be over, considering that he's since dropped 2% nationwide, which does not seem like a lot, but when it comes down to these specific candidates, it definitely is. But right now, I wouldn't say this is the worst place for any of these candidates. Now, the one thing that is coming out to me, Bloomberg is at 5% nationwide. Okay, we could see Bloomberg possibly doing a little bit better, but I don't think he's going to overcome any of the top four candidates right now. Pete Buttigieg, if anyone was to be overcome, but I do not see it happening as of right now. But taking a look at where the where the plurality of the Democratic support lies, 1 in 4 Democratic primary voters are expected to vote for Joe Biden in the primary season. That is out of a field of over 15 now. I think it's dropped down to candidates, so it definitely ends up being good news for Biden. But we could see in the upcoming debates, as we get closer to the primary season, we could see a bit of an alliance between, we've already seen one, between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and we could possibly see them going against Joe Biden consistently, debate after debate, and then it'll end up with two progressives being at the top 2 spot, which for both of them, I don't think would be their worst case scenario. Biden is pretty much the centrist Democratic wing for this party, and he's holding on at 4th of the vote. Now, I do expect with some of these voters, if they end up not supporting a certain candidate after the Iowa caucus or after the New Hampshire primary, which is understandable, a lot of these candidates will drop out after Iowa. We could likely see them move over to the top 3 candidates. We're probably not going to see Buttigieg jump up much higher than he is now unless he has some revolutionary performance in a debate or a very impactful, town hall or something, but it's not likely to happen. Pretty much this race is going to end up being down. Obviously, we're probably not going to see much of Michael Bennet or Marianne Williamson or John Delaney anymore. Tom Steyer probably is going to drop out as well, considering that he has money, but Bloomberg has more money, and you can see how that's reflecting in the national polling data. But I do expect possibly Gabbard to drop, Steyer to drop, Booker to drop, Klobuchar to drop. Yang might want to hold on there, but he's also not doing too well. I get it. There's a lot of internet support for Andrew Yang, but it doesn't mean much if you can't vote and you're supporting a candidate that's already doing bad nationwide. And, a lot of these Democrats I do actually think are electable, which means I do think that they have a realistic shot against President Trump. Nothing is set in stone. Trump is not going to beat every Democrat. Not all of the Democrats are going to beat Donald Trump. Every single one of these candidates could either win or lose against Donald Trump depending on the circumstance, with the exception of just a couple. Looking at people like Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, a lot of you, if you're a supporter of President Trump, I know I've seen a lot of comments saying that Trump would absolutely beat them, which I do not think is true whatsoever. If you take a look at what I base my election predictions off of, pretty much just data, like data that you can't necessarily argue with, it's all in the favor of whatever my prediction would be, give or take a couple of states, but not enough to change the way that the presidency would land if it was an actual matchup. But that's besides the point. This video is about what I expect for Democrats going ahead. So let's take a look at the first four actual races. I want to go ahead and take a look at that because that's pretty important. So Iowa, we see Buttigieg still ahead. Now, this doesn't surprise me. He's held on to a lead for a little bit now, and it hasn't been updated recently. The last poll was taken, pretty recently, December 7th to 10th, but that shows Biden ahead by 1. Previously, it was all November polls. So right now, we could actually see a Buttigieg victory in the state of Iowa. Now, that isn't something that the Democrats haven't prepared for. That's definitely been discussed. We've seen him pretty much jump up drastically in polling data across the state of Iowa, practically overnight in terms of the primary season time period. But we probably could expect him maybe maintaining a first, second, third place. Anything above third pretty much would mean that Buttigieg is still going to stay in the race. But if he's dropping down to fourth in the state of Iowa, I would say maybe he's probably going to drop out, because we're looking at a candidate that has a little bit of a bump nationwide, gets a little bit of media coverage. The only thing that's working for him right now is these two early contests, which you'll see in New Hampshire in just a moment. But if that doesn't work out, we could see a possible Buttigieg drop. But I do expect it to just be Sanders, Biden, and Warren by the end of Super Tuesday, give or take, because we probably are going to see Bloomberg try to stay in the race, especially if he makes it onto the debate stage. We could see him trying to cross over some voters in favor of him. But if that doesn't work, then we could see Bloomberg drop as well. But again, those top three candidates I really see holding on, obviously, throughout the race. But like I had said, in the state of New Hampshire, Buttigieg isn't in a he actually was leading at a point in time to win this race, but Sanders has since pulled ahead. But pretty much, I don't know why this is messed up down here. Sanders has not led throughout this whole time, because you can clearly see Biden ahead of Sanders in the state of New Hampshire. But this is pretty much repeating what I saw in 2016. Hillary Clinton was supposed to win New Hampshire early on. Sanders ended up winning it anyway. But it'll probably just be Sanders, Buttigieg, Warren, Biden from the state of New Hampshire, which also 24 delegates, not a lot to worry about for the Democrats. Just sets the tone. But for people like Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders, these early races are not what is going to decide the presidential primary outcome for them. As for a lot of these other candidates, they may end up having to drop out, because if they don't get an early performance, they're going to be shut out of the debates continuing on. So, like I had said, expect dropouts. But Nevada, Biden still holds on to a 9% lead statewide. Again, not the biggest prize, but Biden does need a victory at this point, especially maintaining first place nationwide if you're not winning early on. It doesn't look good, but he definitely still has a chance. You could definitely see Biden lose New Hampshire, Iowa, Nevada even, and Biden could still win the primary process. It's not going to look the best for him, but it's definitely realistic. For some of these other candidates, it's definitely not realistic. If their names aren't out there and they aren't getting on that debate stage after Nevada, that's not a problem for Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg. They're on there. Michael Bloomberg's on there. But the rest of them, if they're not performing well, they're not getting on that debate stage. And that's the only way Democratic primary voters are going to change their minds, unless someone else messes up. And even then, we're probably not going to see all of Biden's support go to Marianne Williamson. So, South Carolina. This one, Biden has held on to, but recently, if you look at the most recent poll, his numbers have dropped. Now, if Biden loses here, this will be insanely good for some of the Democrats and insanely bad for the centrist ones. The South is the best place for Joe Biden, period. And if he's not winning there, he's not winning elsewhere. This is going to be the first true test of African American support for Joe Biden. This is an area that has supported Hillary Clinton, supported Barack Obama. I believe in 2008. I could be wrong about that. But if you take a look, I don't think I'm wrong about that. But if you take a look at the history, number one, whoever is doing better with African American support. 2016, Hillary Clinton by far. 2020, so far, based off the preliminary election data, Joe Biden by far. He holds on to, I think, 51% of African American voters in a field of over 15 people. So, again, not the worst place for him, but South Carolina will be the true test for Joe Biden. So pretty much I expect these first elections to be the defining factors for a lot of these other candidates that aren't performing well. Cory Booker, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, Amy Klobuchar, Michael Bloomberg. And yes, some of those candidates are 3-5% candidates nationwide, but you definitely still need to get your wins early on. That would not and does not impact people like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. They already have tremendous name recognition, and they don't need to worry much about early contests when they know with absolutism that they are going to win other contests later on. You can't say the same thing for Cory Booker. You can't say the same thing for Deval Patrick. I don't even know why he's on this poll, or John Delaney even. It really all depends on which candidate we're talking about here. But at the same time, these top 3-4 candidates are definitely immune to the early onset of the race and what it determines for their candidacies. But for the rest of them, it means the entire world to them. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.